Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be doing something a little different. We are going to discuss a song that literally changed my life as a child, called Yakko's World from the show Animaniacs. This is part of my viewer's choice. This was requested by John Power. Thank you, John, for this topic. For those who don't know, Animaniacs was a show in the 90s, a little cartoon that was produced by Steven Spielberg, and it was very tongue-in-cheek about the world of film and TV and media and news and all of those things. The three main characters were the Warner Brothers and their sister, Yakko, Wakko, and Dot, and their various misadventures on the Warner Brothers lot. There were other side stories, other little mini shows within the show, but we're not going to talk about those today. Pinky and the Brain's the best known one. But it was very comical and very musical. A lot of those songs I sing every single day, just in my head, all the time. And like I said, it was really cheeky about Hollywood and just media and politics and things. But every once in a while, they would throw in an educational song. And the first big one that they did was Yakko's World, in which Yakko sang the names of every single country in the world. That kind of blew up. There was no internet back then, but it became pretty much viral, even though there was no internet for it to spread on. It spread through word of mouth. Then they created Wacko's America or Wacko's States, or is the same thing, but he sang all the states and their capitals. There was a song about the planets. They did, what else? They did all kinds of different educational songs, but nothing was ever as popular as Yakko's World. I watched that when I was probably 7 or 8. Animaniacs was my favorite show, and I had a childhood hyperfixation with world geography. I had a lot of childhood hyperfixations, but world geography was a pretty big one. So I thought that it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. I absolutely loved it, and to date this event, I got the Animaniacs soundtrack on cassette tape, and my mom got out her typewriter and she typed up the lyrics of Yakko's World and the other songs so that I could practice and sing them and memorize them. That's how, nowadays you would just print it out online, but that's not how it was back in, 92, 93? Gosh, yeah, I was probably 7 or 8. So, let's talk about Yakko's World. Yakko's World, I have little facts about it over here, was first, broadcast in 1993. So one of the issues is that it's about the world in 1993, which was a pretty different place than it is today. And the song has a lot of issues. But to kickstart, I'm going to sing the song. And yes, I have the song memorized. I've got the lyrics next to me just because I need to reference them. But I swear I have the song memorized, okay? So Yakko comes out, and he has a map of the world, and he points to each country as he says the name. And it goes like this. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam, Norway and Sweden, and Iceland and Finland, Germany, now are one piece, Switzerland, Austria, and Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece, Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq, and Iran. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait, and Bahrain. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Portugal. France, England, Denmark, and Spain. India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan. Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China. Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia. The Philippine Islands, Taiwan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Sumatra, New Zealand, and Borneo, and Vietnam. Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Algeria, Guinea, and Ghana, Burundi, Lesotho, Malawi, and Togo. The Spanish Sahara is gone. Nigeria, Chad, and Liberia, Egypt, Benin, and Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya, and Mali, Sierra Leone, and Algiers, Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea, Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Mahore, Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia, Crete, Mauritania, then Transylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan. Fiji, Australia, Sudan, Gosh, I almost had it. I messed up at the very end there. Goodness. That's Yakko's world. It blew my mind as a child. And yeah, kind of became like a meme before memes became a thing. That's the song, Yakko's world. So I've got my map out here that I can write on. We're going to go stanza by stanza and check off if Yakko got it right or if he got something horrifically wrong. And I will say, in Yakko's defense, in the songwriters and Animaniacs' defense, a lot of the errors in the song are due to needing to rhyme or needing to keep the flow of the song. It's a very fast song, as you heard. So I get why some mistakes were made, but some others are pretty unforgivable. So let's start. I think there's only like 2 or 3 stanzas that are perfectly fine. So let's start. The first one is United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too. So we have United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, goodness, it's so crowded, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. Republic Dominican is the first kind of, what? But I get they needed it to sound, Dominican Republic doesn't flow as well as Republic Dominican. But then they say Cuba, Caribbean, question mark. So, and then let's finish off Greenland, El Salvador too. And we'll come back to that. There's El Salvador. So, Caribbean is not a country, but it's also a clever way of having to skip like all of these island nations here and a bit within. But Caribbean is not a country. And the fact that they rhymed Caribbean with Dominican is a little strange, but it was a way for them to skip, I guess, all of these countries. But I would have rather had a longer song than let's sum up a bunch of countries by just saying Caribbean, So that's pretty bad. And then after that, they say Greenland. Greenland is not a country. Greenland, as you can see here, is part of Denmark. They could have said one of these countries in that place. They could have said, what's one that's 2 syllables? I guess there isn't one, is there? I don't know. I'm not a songwriter. They could have thrown in an actual country in that spot. They didn't need to say Greenland. Greenland is not a country. It has autonomy, but that doesn't make it a country. A lot of places have autonomy, but aren't countries. Interesting choice. So yeah, 2 mistakes in that verse. Next is Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, then Ecuador, Chile, Brazil. So start off, Puerto Rico is right in here. Goodness, it's so hard to see. There's so much writing in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico is right here. Puerto Rico is not a country. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Like Greenland and Denmark, Puerto Rico has autonomy. It is not a state. It's a territory of the United States. But it is not its own country. Don't know why they threw that in there. But then we have Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, right here. And then they say Guyana, which it's pronounced Guyana. And so if you watch any of my videos from 2020, I pronounce everything the way Yakko does because I thought that was how it was pronounced. So I say Guyana. I didn't know it was Guyana. It's pronounced Guyana. That's how they say it. Guyana is the French pronunciation, and this region is known as the Guianas, but the country is Guyana. So that's that. He mispronounces Guyana. It's Guyana, not Guyana. But there are the Guyana Highlands, you know. There's French Guiana, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, that's minor. They could have said Guyana. Then I think the rest of that verse is pretty good. Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, then Ecuador, Chile, Brazil. Nice. And clever how they rhymed and still with Brazil. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a good rhyme. Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam. Okay, so Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua. So they got all Central America. Nicaragua, Bermuda, which is not a country. Bermuda is, I'll put a question mark there. Bermuda is part of the United Kingdom. It is a territory of the United Kingdom. They didn't need to say Bermuda. It's autonomous, but it's part of the UK. But okay. Bermuda, Bahamas is up here. Tobago refers to Trinidad and Tobago, which is down here. Near Venezuela. There, it's covered up by Venezuela's checkmark. Trinidad and Tobago is the name of the country. It is kind of a mouthful, so it's kind of interesting how they just said Tobago and not Trinidad. I see, did it need to rhyme? They could have said Trinidad. Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Trinidad, San Juan. Yeah, they could have absolutely. Next is San Juan. Now, San Juan is not a country. San Juan is a place in Puerto Rico, like San Juan Hill. It could be I'm sure there's many cities called San Juan. But when I think San Juan, I think of San Juan Hill in Puerto Rico, which is just a double sandwich of incorrect. So I'm not quite sure which San Juan they're referring to, but I'm pretty sure they're talking about San Juan in Puerto Rico, which San Juan is a place in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is not a country. Interesting choice there. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that was an interesting choice in a second when we see what it rhymes with. But then he says, also mispronouncing Paraguay, Uruguay, which is why I call them that in the first videos I made about Paraguay and Uruguay, which is how you actually say them. Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, which is not a country. That is part of France. It's actually a department of France, which is kind of like saying a state in the United States. So it's not an independent, it's literally part of France. It's like Alaska it'd be like if he said Alaska or Hawaii, right? It is literally part of France. Interesting. But that covers all of South America, right? Yeah. Interesting. So he got the whole Western Hemisphere, except for all of these, but he just said Caribbean. Interesting. Where was I? Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam. So he does include Barbados, which is out here. You can see Barbados right there. So interesting that he says Barbados, but skips all of the other Caribbean countries there. He could have said Grenada. That's easy to say. I understand St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a bit of a mouthful. Antigua and Barbuda is kind of a mouthful, but they're sitting there. They're there. He said Trinidad, and he said Barbados, and even Bermuda. And Bahamas. Interesting, but yes. And then he says Guam, which on my map is way over here. Guam is right. Goodness, I've lost Guam. Is Guam on my map? There's Micronesia. Is Guam on my map? Hold on. There it is. Oh my gosh. That scared me. It's right here. Guam. I was like, where is it? It's tiny little writing. Okay, phew. There's Guam. Guam is part of the United States. It is not a country. It is like Puerto Rico. It's a territory of the U.S. It is not a state. They don't have state representation, but they are a territory of the U.S. So interesting that he rhymes San Juan and Guam. None of those needed to be there. They could have absolutely rewritten the song to include actual countries and maybe even throw in a clever rhyme like and still in Brazil. I don't know. Just weird stuff. But we move on to Europe. Norway and Sweden and Iceland and Finland and Germany now are one piece. He says that because Germany was just unified from East Germany and West Germany. It happened in 89. I think it became official in 91. So that's why he says now one piece. Could be wrong about that, but definitely became a thing in 89. Then he says, oh gosh, it's so tiny. Switzerland, Austria, and then he says Czechoslovakia. And that is actually incorrect for his time. There's Czech and Slovakia right there. Czechoslovakia was a country for quite a while, from 1918 until 1992, I believe. After the Soviet Union split apart, Czechoslovakia became an independent country again. And they decided, just because the countries were so different politically and culturally, the two regions, I should say, of the country, they just decided to split into their two own countries, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So that had happened by the time Yakko sang this song. He could have said Czech and Slovakia, which when I was little, that's what I would say when I would sing the song, so that would be a little more correct. But he says Czechoslovakia, which was not a country anymore at that time. But then he says Italy, Turkey, and Greece. Italy, Turkey, and Greece. Poland, Romania, Scotland, which is an interesting choice. Scotland is technically a country. And I guess that's easier than saying UK, but he's going to exclude Wales and Northern Ireland. So he's going to say England in a minute. So, I don't know why you couldn't just say UK randomly anywhere. UK is very easy to say. You can even rhyme it with a lot of things. But he includes Scotland and England, but not Wales and Northern Ireland. Very strange. Okay, so where was I? Scotland. Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania. Albania's down here. Ireland, Russia, Oman, which is so random. Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary is in there, Cyprus, Iraq, and Iran. Not bad, not bad. Was that whole thing was, except for Scotland, I guess that's the only problematic thing. Not bad. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan. I got them all squeezed in there. And then he says both Yemens, which I think by that point, Yemen was one country. I think it was 91. It was the collapse of the Soviet Union for sure, because, oh gosh, which one was it? South Yemen was the communist one? Or North, I think North Yemen actually was the communist. One of them was a communist country and one of them was not. Soviet Union collapsed, communism started collapsing around the world. That Yemen joined with the other Yemen, they just became Yemen. So saying both Yemens is kind of pointless at that point. It's kind of like saying Germany is now one piece. I guess the same thing happened in East Germany, right? That was communist, it collapsed. So on and so forth. I don't know why you needed to point out both Yemens when there was only one Yemen by that point. Pretty sure. It had to have been around that time that Yemen united. But weird that he would say that. Okay, both Yemens, Kuwait, and Bahrain is in here somewhere. The Netherlands, up in the crease here. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Portugal. France, England, Denmark, and Spain. So that was a lot of Europe. Not all of it. All of the new Soviet countries got left out. But I'm pretty sure we're going to come back to feel like Ukraine's in there somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head, thinking like this is so weird. But yes, including England and not Wales and Northern Ireland is pretty wild. England and Scotland, but not Wales or Northern Ireland. It's like if you mention one of them, you gotta include all of them. You know, you gotta say all four. I guess you could argue that Northern Ireland's included with Ireland, but that is a hot debate that we're not gonna get into that. Then we go to India, Pakistan, then he says Burma, which by then it was Myanmar, I believe, right? Gosh, when did they change the name? Let me look it up real quick. I've got my internet pulled up right here. When did... I should have looked this up beforehand. Myanmar change its name. 1989, yeah, so it had become Myanmar by that point. Most of the world still called it Burma, though, in the 90s. You even see on maps like these, it says Myanmar, hypotheses Burma, because a lot of places in the world didn't recognize the name change because it was due to a regime, but it's stuck even after the regime ended. They stayed with Myanmar, and now that a new coup has taken over, they're still sticking with Myanmar, so there's no reason to not say Myanmar. I guess there was, in 93, there's probably a reason to say Burma. Plus, it's easier to say Burma than Myanmar. But yeah, interesting choice saying Burma there. India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan. Gosh, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan. Then he says Kampuchea, which that's kind of unforgivable. That's Cambodia. So speaking of regimes, right? Pol Pot took over Cambodia. He renamed it Kampuchea, which what it was known as way back in the day. He wanted to take everything modern out of Cambodia. He called it his Year Zero plan, and just have everyone live off of subsistence farming. It was a disaster. Millions lost their lives in horrific ways, and he was overthrown. Thanks to Vietnam invading, actually. They got too close to Vietnam's borders, and they retaliated extremely. They occupied the country for 10 years. It became a whole thing, but after that period, it became independent again. They changed it back to Cambodia, and that had happened maybe like 10 years before this song came out. Why in the world did Yakko say Kampuchea? Why in the world? It was definitely Cambodia by that time. I don't think anyone was still saying Kampuchea. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. Anyway, unforgivable Yakko. My goodness, recognizing the Pol Pot Khmer Rouge regime. Unforgivable. Kampuchea, Malaysia, then Bangladesh. Ready for this one? He says Bangladesh, Asia. Now I get he was rhyming. I get why he threw in Asia. Obviously, Asia is not a country, it's a continent. It was for rhyming purposes. But again, he rhymed... Wait, let me double check the lyrics. Yeah, he rhymes... Oh, Asia with Malaysia. That's kind of a lazy rhyme. Kampuchea, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Asia. I mean, surely he could have found a better way to rearrange the words so that you wouldn't say Asia. He doesn't say Europe. He doesn't say Africa. He does say Australia, but that's another geography debate. But, weird. I get why it was for the flow of the song, but Asia is definitely not a country. Bangladesh, Asia, then China, Korea, Japan. Now, Yakko believes in unified Korea, which is another crazy take. There's definitely North Korea, South Korea. If you are a citizen of North Korea, which none of you are watching this, but also if you're South Korean, you don't believe that the other country exists, that it's all one country called Korea, and that the government ruling the other is illegitimate and needs to be overthrown. So if Yakko was Korean, I would kind of get it. But Yakko is not Korean. He is American. He is from Los Angeles. So I guess just kind of like the Caribbean thing, just saying Korea is a lot easier to say than saying North Korea, South Korea, different parts of the song. But politically, Korea is definitely two countries. Maybe someday it'll be one country. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's been that way since 1948. 1945 even, maybe technically, if you count occupation times from the US and USSR. But yikes. Definitely two countries at this point in history, especially in 1993. They were two countries. China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos is right here. Then he says Tibet. Tibet is right here. You can see Tibet. Tibet hasn't been a country since I think 1953, when China invaded and occupied Tibet, kicking out the Dalai Lama, who was the ruler of Tibet. I hashtag free Tibet. Doesn't mean I agree with that. That's horrible. I think, in my opinion, I always say that this was the last time that a country went and invaded another country, and the world was just like, well, I guess that happened. It seems that any time after that, it's been like, whoa, 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 you can't do that. You can't just invade a whole country. Nope, you can't. You can't just take over a whole country. And this was the last time I think that a country got away with invading a whole other country and absorbing it. Was Tibet. But yeah, Yakko recognizes a free Tibet, which is great. Tibet should be free from China, but sadly it is not, and that is just a political thing. You know, as I talked about it in my last Israel video, is like, which government is currently administering this region? It is China. China is controlling Tibet. It is currently part of China. Unfortunately, I wish it was not so. Tibet deserves to be free and independent, but it is currently not so today, and was definitely not so in 1993. But Yakko called it out anyway. Way to go, Yakko. Hashtag free Tibet. Hashtags did not exist back then. We called them pounds or pound signs back in the 90s. The word hashtag did not exist until Twitter was invented. Fun fact. We called it pound. Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan, which Yakko also recognizes free independent Taiwan. Yakko's getting on China's bad side today. Yeah, depending on how you believe it, Taiwan is or is not independent. It goes back to China's communist revolution, takeover from Mao Zedong, who took over the Chinese government and made it the People's Republic of China. The leading Chinese government, led by Chiang Kai-shek, fled to Taiwan, where they established the Republic of China. That's what they still call it today. The island is called Taiwan. Many people just call it Taiwan because that's the name of the island, but to them, that is the Republic of China. So China does not recognize that government. They say it is part of China. And it's one of those, like, where my argument, who is currently administering that land, kind of falls apart, because Taiwan does have its own independent government that runs the country, but it's overseen by the Chinese government. And at the end of the day, the Chinese government has say over Taiwan. And that's unfortunate, because my other personal belief is that if a place wants to be independent, it should be independent. Let them go. If they don't want to be with you, just break up. If it's true love, they'll come back, you know. But so, I believe Taiwan should be free and independent. In my series, we're actually gonna go to Taiwan, I think in February. If you're watching me for the first time, hello. I have a long series where I'm going through every single region of the world in alphabetical order. We've got a couple in Taiwan coming up, and I'm gonna recognize it as free and independent, because Taiwan wants to be free and independent. And also, China can't access YouTube, so I'm not about to get a ton of angry Chinese comments. Although, shout out to the person who does mirror my videos in China so that Chinese citizens can watch my videos. I'm not mad about that at all. Please steal my videos and send them to parts of the world that doesn't have YouTube. I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm not fine with you stealing it and calling it your own. But if you're stealing it to send it to like China or another place that doesn't have access to YouTube, by all means, please do that. spread my videos around the world. But those people who watch my videos on that random Chinese website are not about to be happy with me. If they were subscribed to me, they would all leave, but they're not, so it's what ifs. It's what ifs. There's I kind of messed up that check mark. Where's my eraser? Right here. Taiwan is over here. There we go. Where was I? India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Thailand, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, Tibet, Indonesia, Philippines, Taiwan. It's not Cambodia. Sumatra. No, it's not Sumatra. I literally have to sing it. Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand, and Borneo and Vietnam. Okay, goodness. So Sri Lanka, New Guinea, which is a hot topic there. So this is the island of New Guinea. Right here. New Guinea has 2 countries on it, Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. So just saying New Guinea is kind of wild because New Guinea is not a country, but Papua New Guinea, named thusly because when this region was actually part of Australia, it was known as it had a horrible name. It was like the territory of North Papua and New Guinea. Something it was awful. It was way too long, so they just condensed it to Papua New Guinea, which is already still a long name, but it is condensed from the much awful farther name that the Australian government gave it. So I get that. Let's say that that's Papua New Guinea that he's referring to there, because saying New Guinea is much easier than saying Papua New Guinea, right? Less of a mouthful. So I get why they made the change, but that is not what that country is called. That's what the island is called. But again, that's kind of like saying Republic of Ireland on the island of Ireland. Because the country is named Ireland, the island is named Ireland, but not the entire island is part of the country. Same with New Guinea. But anyway, that's another, I guess, geography debate. It's hard to remember where I was. Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand. So once again, Sumatra is right here. Sumatra. I always get Sumatra and Java mixed up. Java is down here. This is Sumatra. Sumatra is an island of Indonesia. It is not its own country. That is just an island within Indonesia. So, weird choice. But okay. Yakko made that choice. And he says New Zealand. Then Borneo, which is also an island. It is this island here. Borneo. Borneo actually has 3 countries on it. It has Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. He could have said then Brunei and then Vietnam instead of Borneo and Vietnam. Let's check off Vietnam while I'm thinking about it. But he said Borneo, which Borneo is not a country at all. It never was. It's always been a territory. And there's regions within Malaysian Borneo. There's Sarawak and Sabah that are also, so anyway, weird choice, but he says Borneo and Sumatra, which are not countries. They are parts of Indonesia. He could have said Sulawesi and Java. He could have said, I guess he did say New Guinea, didn't he? Maybe he was talking about Indonesian New Guinea if he said Sumatra and Borneo. Put a question mark there for that. Borneo and Vietnam. We hop over to Africa. Tunisia, Morocco, Angola. No, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana. Uganda is so small. Uganda is so much smaller than I always think it is. Angola. I almost checked Namibia. We'll do that later. Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana. I loved how he said Botswana always. Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland. I'd always mess that part up as a kid. I'd always say Gambia twice. I'd say Mozambique, Gambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Guinea, Algeria. It's hard. I have to force myself to say Zambia. It's right here. Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland. Now this is fine. It even says Swaziland on my map here. Swaziland changed its name to Eswatini. I should capitalize it. although sometimes the S is capitalized. That looks terrible. They changed their name in 2019, so forgivable for Yakko to say Swaziland. Eswatini. Forgivable, Yakko. It was known as Swaziland back then. It is now incorrect. That'll be true for another country coming up in a minute. Swaziland, Gambia. Oh, it's going to be so hard to check. It's so tiny. Gambia, Algeria. No, Guinea, Algeria, Ghana. Guinea's right here. Boop. Right? That's Guinea. What did I just check off? Oh, I checked off Ivory Coast. Guinea, Algeria, Ghana. Right here. Then he goes, Burundi. Gosh, Burundi and Rwanda are so small. Burundi, Lesotho, which he mispronounces. It's Lesotho. I always say it correctly now because I can't not say Lesotho, but he says Lesotho. It's pronounced Lesotho. Burundi, Lesotho, and he also says Malawi. It's Malawi. I've never realized that ever. Malawi's right here. Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo. Yeah, he says Malawi. Interesting. Here's Togo. Right here, the tiny one. Then he says, okay, the song goes Burundi, Lesotho, Malawi, and Togo. The Spanish Sahara is gone. Which I assume he's talking about Western Sahara right here. Well, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to color it in for you so you can see it a little better. All the Moroccans are subscribed to me. They're about to hoot and holler, but hold your horses. Okay, this is Western Sahara. Back in colonial times during the scramble for Africa, France and Spain divided Morocco. This part went to France. This part went to Spain. Spain had like a bit of a crisis on their hands when Algeria revolted in a big way. And Spain realizes they needed to give up their colonies quick before anything like Algeria ever happened again. So Morocco would eventually gain its independence. Today it's the Kingdom of Morocco. Spain, not so much. Spain still had Franco, a hardliner. He was determined to keep all of his overseas territories. And once he passed on, it became kind of nebulous. So when that happened, Spain was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, Spain is still kind of weird about Morocco. There's 2 cities up here that are still Spanish territory, Ceuta and Melilla. They refuse to give those back. But Western Sahara, I mean, it's mostly desert. It's mostly the Sahara. It was called Spanish Morocco, which is why I think he says Spanish Sahara is... I've never heard it called Spanish Sahara. Also, it's Sahara, but never have I ever heard anyone else call it Spanish Sahara except for Yakko Warner, which is really weird. So that's why I think he's talking about Western Sahara. So here's the thing. Western Sahara today is administered by Morocco, but has been struggling for independence for quite a while, right? Even the map here shows it as separate. Interesting that it does that. It doesn't show Somaliland separate, does it? No, it doesn't. It does not. Because that's another, like, similar situation, but very different circumstances in Somalia and Somaliland. So he says the Spanish Sahara is gone, because by that point, Spain no longer administered Western Sahara. But it hadn't been administering it for, like, a while, since, like, the 70s, I want to say. So just a weird statement to say in the song. Is like, he didn't even technically need to say Western Sahara, because it's kind of like including Taiwan and Tibet at this point. But weird choice. But they needed something to rhyme with Gabon, which he did pronounce correctly. But okay, Spanish Sahara is gone. He says Nigeria, which is another mispronunciation. This country's pronounced Niger. This is Nigeria. That is another leftover from colonialism. This part went to France. This part went to England, or the Great Britain, I guess it would be called at that point. Let's just say England to keep it simple. British people cannot pronounce anything right. They pronounce everything their own way. My favorite example, if you watch the movie Gandhi, Just a fantastic movie, by the way. It's very long, but it's absolutely beautiful. You hear the British call that man Gandhi throughout the entire movie. And it drives me crazy. But then I realize I say Ganges River because that's how you say it in English. But that's because that's how the British pronounced the Ganges River. The Ganja River, even. So I watched that movie with my brother, and we just randomly just go Gandhi at each other all the time. Whenever we bring it up, I mentioned him the other day because my new history magazine has an article about him. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's an article about Gandhi. And he was like, you said his name wrong. It's Gandhi. Gandhi. Talking about Gandhi. But anyway, coming back to Africa. It is that situation here. So the French called their region Niger. The British called their region Nigeria. And both are named after what's known in English as the Niger River, known in French as the Niger River. So it's one of those places that, depending on what language you speak, is how you pronounce the river. In American English, it is the Niger River, named after Nigeria. Nigeria. In French-speaking part of the world, the Francophone world, it is the Niger River. This is Nigeria. That's Niger, right? No one says Niger. No one. Probably, and of course I said Niger for the longest time because of Yakko. But I get why, because you see Nigeria, you have the Niger River. This is Niger. But that is not the name of this country. It is Niger. It's definitely pronounced Niger all over the world nowadays. That is how it is pronounced. That is how it's like Lesotho. It looks like Lesotho. You want to say Lesotho, but it's Lesotho. Same with Kiribati, which Yakko forgets. Kiribati has an I at the end. It's pronounced as an S. It's pronounced Kiribati. Even in like English where nothing is pronounced right, it's pronounced Kiribati. It's not Kiribati. This is Niger. Don't say Niger. It's Niger, okay? But it goes Niger, Nigeria, Chad, and Liberia. Liberia is so small. Where's Freetown? Egypt, Benin, and Gabon. And he says Benin, right? Gabon is down here, right? I'm doubting myself. This is Gabon right here, yes. I'm staring right at it, being like, that is Gabon, right? Yes. And I love how he says Tanzania, Somalia. Not Tanzania, he goes Tanzania, Somalia. Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya, and Mali. Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya, and Mali, Sierra Leone, and Algeria. I need to slow down. Kenya, Mali, Sierra Leone. And then he says Algiers. Okay, according to this, we've already said Algeria, right? Yes, we said Guinea, Algeria, Ghana. Algiers is the capital of Algeria. Why? Okay, I see why. I'm looking at the lyrics real quick to see why he said Algiers. And we'll explain why, and we'll come back to Algiers, but that is a weird choice. That is the capital of Algeria. That is a city. That is not a country. Okay, next he says Dahomey. What? Okay, hold on. I'm making sure. I checked off Ivory Coast instead of Ghana. That's the mistake I made. There we go. That's Ghana. That's Ivory Coast. That's Sierra Leone. Okay. West Africa, we got it figured out. Dahomey is what Benin was known as long ago. It was an ancient kingdom. The Dahomey warriors, the Dahomey Amazons, were very famous because they were all female warriors. A great story. Terrible movie they made about it. Apparently I haven't seen it. I heard it was awful. No one has said Dahomey since Benin became independent and it became Benin. Granted, Benin is named after the Kingdom of Benin, which was based in Nigeria in Benin City. But the Kingdom of Benin stretched into what is today Benin, so they adopted that name at independence, not Dahomey. But Yakko already said Benin. Right? I checked off Benin. Yes, Egypt, Benin, and Gabon. Oh my goodness. Yakko, what are you doing? No one says Dahomey anymore. Like, if you say Dahomey, you're referring to, like, the ancient kingdom or the colonial-owned Goodness. Uh, goodness. Why did he say Dahomey? That was totally, because it doesn't even rhyme with anything. That was absolutely unnecessary. Yakko, we did not need to say. Nobody says Dahomey. That's like saying Kampuchea, but Kampuchea is way worse than saying Dahomey. Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire. Yes, okay. Senegal, Libya, Cameroon. Then he says Congo, Zaire. Okay, so this is interesting because that was accurate at the time. We're going to check off the Republic of the Congo for Congo because that's what it was known as, and it was just called Congo. This is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In 1993, it was known as Zaire. Very similar situation to like saying Kampuchea, was that there was a regime takeover of the country. They renamed the country Zaire. Once that regime collapsed, they renamed it the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is quite a mouthful. But that did not happen until, like 98, 99, like way after this song came out. So at the time, this was Zaire. Which, yeah, Zaire is a better name than Democratic Republic of the Congo. But what the name Zaire represents is pretty awful. That was a very awful regime in the country. The country still has not recovered economically at all, politically at all from that time. So it's not a good name, even though it is really pretty. I used to run kids' birthday parties, and I had a 5-year-old named Zaire that I had to run a party for, and it was like, why would you name your kid Zaire? Like, it's a cool name out of context. It's great. It's fun to say also. So back to Algiers. Algiers is rhyming with Zaire, which fair. Zaire was the name of the country back when the song came out. But surely there is a better way to put Zaire in the song without including Algiers, which is not a country at all. Like, at all. Like, it is a city within Algeria. It is the capital city within anyway. Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, which is really tiny. There it is, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda. Okay, now here it gets weird. Rwanda is right here. It's very small. The line goes, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Mahore, Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia. Okay, let's slow down. Mahore is Mayotte. Let's see if Mayotte is on my map. I don't know. I see the Chagos. I see Réunion. There's Mauritius. I don't see Mayotte. Unless I wrote Eswatini over it, but I don't think, no. Mayotte is not on here. Mayotte is like right here. It's in this area. Mahore is what people in Mayotte call Mayotte. Interesting choice. Also, Mayotte is part of France. I think it is a full department, like Reunion. Reunion, I believe, is a full department, or like state, like we'd say in the U.S. I'm probably wrong about this, but it's somewhere around here in the Indian Ocean. Yeah. It has a choice to say Mahore instead of Mayotte. Weird choice to even include Mayotte, but they also included French Guiana. But it doesn't include Reunion. Weird choice. But the next, he says Cayman. I assume that means the Cayman Islands, which are covered up by my check mark for Jamaica. Let's see if they're there right here, the Caymans. The Cayman Islands are not part, or not a country. They are part of the UK, just like Bermuda. They are not an independent country, but absolutely weird that he says Cayman. Nobody says that. What is he rhyming it with? Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Mahore, Cayman. I don't know. Why does he say it like that? Why does he include that? That is not a country. And that's not even close to how you say it. Like, no one says Cayman. Does anyone say Cayman? The Cayman Islands? I don't know. Also, I assume he's talking about the Cayman Islands. Because what else would be called Cayman or Cayman? Is there a place called Cayman? I don't think so. I assume he's talking about the Cayman Islands, which is not a country. Then he goes right to Hong Kong. Now, this is interesting for 1993. Hong Kong is right here. Hong Kong is not a country. It is currently part of China. In 1993, though, Hong Kong was still not a country. It was a separate region administered by the UK. So there were two cities along the coast here. There are two cities along the coast here, Hong Kong and Macau, that were former colonies. Back in the day when China wanted to set up trading stations with European powers, they said you can set up here and just, govern that area. That will be part of your land, and then we can easily trade with you because you all are on the other side of the world. So the British had Hong Kong, the Portuguese had Macau. Once people realized that colonizing things was bad, they came to an agreement. They said, listen, we will slowly start pulling out of Hong Kong. Portugal says we'll start slowly pulling out of Macau. I think Macau. Definitely Hong Kong. They said, you're going to get it back on December 31st, 1999. And that is precisely what happened. At the end of the century, or the dawn of the year 2000, Hong Kong was handed back to China. It was no longer part of the UK. Some people still claim Hong Kong and Macau as separate because they are very separate within the Chinese sphere of culture, just because they were not Chinese for so long. Lots of people speak English in Hong Kong. They speak Cantonese. They don't speak Mandarin like most of China, or most of the Han Chinese, I should say. Same with Macau. People there still speak some Portuguese, but there's a lot of English there, so on and so forth. It's quite culturally different in Hong Kong than, say, Beijing. But it is technically part of China. No one's really disputing that. You can say #free Hong Kong if you want, but Hong Kong independence movements nowhere near like Taiwan and Tibet. Nowhere near. So, nevertheless, that's still not a country. That was a territory of the UK when this song came out. He gets really weird at the end here. All these places are not countries. Hong Kong. Okay, then he says Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is the capital of the UAE. It is not a country. It is an emirate within the United Arab Emirates. Weird, but again, Abu Dhabi is easier to say than United Arab Emirates, but UAE is right there. Abu Dhabi, UAE. UAE is easier to say than Abu Dhabi. And he's not even rhyming it with anything. So weird. Sorry, I just hit my pop screen there. Weird. I'm running out of ways to be like, why would you say that? Then he says Qatar, which I've covered up there. It's in there. Then he says Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia did not exist. Put a question mark at this point in time. Yugoslavia collapsed beginning in 1991 when Croatia pulled out. Bosnia pulled out, and that became a huge conflict. Same with Croatia. But Bosnia became a huge conflict. It was really just Serbia and Montenegro held on for a long time. They were known at this time as Serbia and Montenegro. It was one country, two names, Serbia and Montenegro. Very similar to Bosnia and Herzegovina today. One thing, two names. Wild to say Yugoslavia. Wild to say Yugoslavia. That's probably another way, like Caribbean, so that he doesn't have to say Bosnia, Herzegovina. I think he says Croatia, though. He doesn't say Slovenia. That was part of Yugoslavia. He doesn't say... Does he say Serbia? I don't think he says Serbia, but I'm pretty sure... Let me go back in the lyrics, because I'm not about to sing the whole song all over again. To see if he says Croatia. Let me see. Okay, he does not say Croatia. Never mind. So yeah, he lumps them all in as Yugoslavia, which is absolutely wild. Wild choice there. But we're going to move on from that. Wild choice. Yugoslavia. Then he says Crete. It's just back to back incorrect. Crete is down here. That is an island of Greece. It is part of Greece. It's not even independent. It's just part of Greece. It's like saying Florida in the US. A weird choice there for Crete. Then he goes on to Mauritania, which is an actual country. Then Transylvania. This one song is really fast. It goes Crete, Mauritania, then Transylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan. Transylvania is not a country. It is part of Romania. It is one of the main regions of Romania. It used to be independent back in like the 1400s, 1300s. It was its own country. That's where, Vlad the Impaler from. He was actually Wallachia, but that's technical. Wallachia is within Transylvania. And he already said Romania, so there was no reason to say Transylvania. No reason at all. Very odd. Then he actually says 3 actual countries. He says Monaco, which is over here on the Greece. Liechtenstein, which is in here-ish, somewhere. It's very small. Malta, which is down here. Malta. Is Malta not on my map? Hold on 1 second. Malta's not straight up not there. Malta's down. They left out Malta on my map. Oh my gosh. Then he says Palestine, which is over here. I don't even think my map says Palestine. It certainly does not. Or, wait, maybe it says it on that side. What does that say? Nope, that's Jerusalem. Okay, it does not say Palestine on my map either. Which Palestine is a region of the world. Hashtag free Palestine. Hashtag recognize Palestine. Absolutely, Palestine should be recognized. Is currently the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Used to be bigger. Huge debate. But very interesting of Yakko to say Palestine in 1993. Because that was not a very popular opinion in the US and much of the Western world. It was all about recognizing Israel and only Israel. Very Zionist, right? So wild for Yakko to say Palestine. Very radical, very progressive of Yakko to say Palestine. We support that, Yakko, but in 1993, that was a wild hot take to have. Interesting choice there. And then he throws out 3 actual countries. Fiji, which, let's see where Fiji is on the map, if it's cut off right here. That's right on the edge. He says Fiji, Australia, Sudan. And that's forgivable because South Sudan here did not exist back then. This was all Sudan back in 1993. South Sudan became a country in 2011, so that's fine for him to forget or not mention South Sudan because it was Sudan back then. That is the song. So let's look around and see what we forgot. The first thing that stands out to me is all of the former Soviet nations. Like all of this over here, the Baltic states, Belarus. He doesn't say Ukraine, and he doesn't say the Caucasus, countries of Armenia, Azerbaijan, or Georgia. He leaves out a lot of the stands. There's Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan is not there, Tajikistan is not there, and Kyrgyzstan is not there. What else can we see? I mean, he did get most of them. He did not say South Africa. Not South Africa, poor country. He absolutely left out South Africa. Eritrea is left out, but that had just become newly independent from Ethiopia, so I guess that's fine. I think that was in 91 or 92. So I don't think a lot of countries officially recognized it by that point. I think it was 91 they officially separated from Ethiopia. Obviously, a lot of countries in Oceania were not mentioned. Let's see what we've got here. Other than French Polynesia, which is surprising that Yakko didn't say French Polynesia, because that's a region of France as well. There's Tonga, there's Samoa, there's my good old Nauru, there's Vanuatu, Tuvalu, the Solomon Islands, Kiribati, there's Nauru right there. The Marshall Islands, I shouldn't check them off because he didn't say them. But question marks there. Let's do that again. Fiji. Oh no, he says Fiji. He actually says Fiji. Right at the end. Vanuatu, Solomons, Tuvalu, Nauru, Kiribati, the Marshall Islands, Palau is not mentioned. Does he say? He doesn't say Micronesia. That's Guam that he said for some reason. Goodness. And then over here, let me fix this. This Samoa and Tonga are not mentioned. Goodness. So, and I get why, like, the Baltics weren't mentioned, because they're also brand new countries, like Eritrea, a brand new country. Czech Republic and Slovakia were brand new countries. But he doesn't say Kazakhstan either. Just weird choices all around, I think. Oh my goodness. Weird choices over here. Weird choices throughout many parts of the world, to be honest. Very odd. But that is Yakko's World broken down by a geography nerd. Like I said, this song had a huge impact on me as a child because I loved me some geography. And I absolutely was obsessed with this song, and I'd sing it all the time, mainly to impress people. But I'm going to stop yapping because I'm looking at the time. I've been talking for an hour now, so I'm going to stop. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you found this video to be relaxing and maybe a bit educational too. And I hope that you have a good night. There we go. The world is now